Welcome viewers to another very exciting show, Women Now. Manesh, what do we have today?
We have another wonderful show as usual.
We talk about love.
Yep.
And then we talk about depression.
That's
and
right.
breakups.
Now,
and then how to take care of money after you break up.
How to take care of money after you break up?
Yeah, or when you're going through a separation. That's important, right? Because
a
lot of our viewers may not even know how to handle money. So we're covering that topic.
Yep.
But our first topic is about love.
Yes, love. And the idea of marriage and counseling, depression, all of these things that we as South Asians don't like to address. We always think that, hey, we got it covered. But
we think it's a disease if you have to go to a therapist, which is really wrong. But before we do that, can I ask you, what is love?
What is love? Love is when your heart races when somebody walks into the room, and I'll give you all the romantic. I'll give you all the romantic stuff. No, I mean, come on, we could do a whole show on love, but I think that it's really individual to each different person.
Correct. So we went to an event, Love Beckons. It's a singles mixer event, and Cynthia had a chance to talk to some of the guests over there. Let's take you there.
Priya is a very good friend of mine, and she has been telling me and actually talking about this idea of having an event to bring people together, help find, you know, friends, mates, whatever. And I thought it was a neat idea. You know, I have attended a few other events like that, and you know, I gave her feedback on what kind of event it would be. And when she informed me what she was thinking of, I really liked the idea.
Nice, nice. So tell me, where else have you been looking for partners? Like, do you go on online dating sites, or do you find that you meet more people through friends?
Yeah, I have tried a couple of on-site setups, and I didn't really enjoy them. I prefer it when, you know, friends set up other friends, and, you know, they kind of know the two people and they feel they might be a good fit. And, you know, it could end up in a beautiful friendship or something like that, and I like that path much more than the blind dates kind of through a, you know, website.
Nice.
So I like this kind of setup where I know people are known to each other and you feel more comfortable and relaxed.
Yeah. And what do you think of this event today?
It's very nice. It's a beautiful setting and very comfortable ambience. Very nice. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yogesh, you're pretty new to the Bay Area, about a year and a half now. Tell me, how different is the dating scene in the US as opposed to India? Were you dating even in India?
Yeah, I used to date a little bit in India. I think it was much easier in India than here. My personal choice is, of course, Indian girls. So I'm somehow more attracted to them, and so there are more choice, of course, in India, so it's much easier.
When you say your preference is Indian girls and you're attracted more to Indian girls, what are the top 3 things you think that attracts you most in a woman?
Of course, beauty, and she should be health conscious for sure. And I think one of the most important things about personality is that she should not be sticking to points. She should be letting go of things pretty easily.
We pretty much all want that, but doesn't always happen. Tell me about you being interested, you said only in Indian girls. How do you overall define love, the million-dollar question?
Love, in my opinion, is a very broad. It has a very broad perspective. You can be attracted to somebody, to her personality, or, you know, to her beauty, but love is more spiritual. It's, you know, it has a very broad meaning. You can love everything and each and everything, right? So I don't think we have this much scope to talk about love. So I would just leave it at that point.
Vishal, you're here for 1 year in the Bay Area and looking for that perfect match for yourself. What are the top 3 things that you're looking for in your woman?
Well, I would say beauty, absolutely, and one thing that I'm always looking for, that is the person shouldn't be too clingy. And well, the third thing, it's really hard to find it because I just hope I can find the first two. But third, I would just say that the person should be outgoing.
Well, tell me this, you being Indian, do you think that you will only be more attracted to people of your cultural background?
Personally, I do feel attracted more to people from my background because the way I grew up. But I've seen my friends date people from other background, and they're more comfortable about it. So it really depends.
With all this discussion of love and love beckons, what's your feeling on relationships? What makes a relationship successful? Top 3 things for you.
I think a lot of sacrifice, a lot of adjustments, and unconditional love. It's like surrender. I think once you surrender to another person, then you don't think. And you feel like, whatever happens, it's for the best.
Okay, now let me...
Complete surrender. You know what that means, right?
To give yourself to the other person.
Correct.
Totally, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I get that. Now let's talk the other side. Let me play devil's advocate. What about if something goes wrong? What happens?
It's not always supposed to be perfect, right? I mean, it's impossible that a relationship of two people living together day and night 24/7 for years and years together is always going to be fruity.
Okay.
Right? It's not going to be like that. It's always not going to be exciting. Now, if there is a deep-seated problem, then you need to either figure it out or you need to find a solution.
Or go to somebody. Something that South Asians do not like to talk about. Like,
therapy.
Okay, therapy. So now what we've done is we've invited, get this, a person, Sumrah Jan, who's actually a master's in counseling, and she's going to sit today with us and talk about family, therapy, depression.
Right.
So thanks for joining us, Sumrah.
Thank you for having me.
Sumrah, you are the most beautiful therapist I've ever met in my life.
Well,
does that help in your profession? People come to you, look at you, and they forget their problems.
I wish they were as gracious as you are, and then that would be great. But
tell us what you see in your practice.
It's very typical, the relationship issues you were mentioning. There's a lot of depression, there's a lot of anxiety around that. And the saddest thing is that as much as I know that these things are prevalent in our community, it's also even sadder that there's such a stigma attached to wanting to come to a therapist or discuss your issues. And even if they do end up coming, it's at a point where it's too late. It's like walking into the ER after you've been shot. So, I mean, it's very hard to figure out a nice way after that. But if you are feeling depressed or if you are having complications during your relationship, I think it's just best to, just walk in and allow yourself that time and space that that would let you think on your own time.
More than the stigma, I think the real problem is most South Asian men think that a therapist can't solve my problems. I mean, I know everything about this world. I know about my wife. I know about myself. What the heck is a therapist, a third person who's not even in my relationship, come to know about me and solve my problems? I mean, that's the ego that plays with most South Asian men. What do you think?
Yeah, I think sure. I mean, I agree. But again, it goes back to that leading to the stigma that what is everybody going to think of me if I say I've got an issue in my relationship and I have to go to somebody and pay somebody money to actually sit there and try and figure it out for me.
I think that is secondary because a lot of people, because there's a lot of confidentiality these days. Most people don't even know that someone's coming to you and all that.
And so going back to what you were saying, this is a very common misconception. People think that if you go to a therapist, they're going to solve your problems for you. We're not there to do that. We don't do that.
You're not?
No, no.
Just kidding.
We help you figure out what you want. We help you figure out how would you like to handle this, because there is no better expert on your life than you. I cannot walk into your shoes. You come in, you talk to me freely. We make the therapy room a place safe enough for you to feel comfortable enough to bring out your issues. And then it's all about self-reflection. It's about being comfortable talking about your inner fears. What's really holding you back? Because in cases of depression or even relationship breakups, you'll notice that there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of shame, and there's a lot of grief. And we never address these issues as grief. stats show that after a spouse dying, the most stressful thing in your life will be a divorce. It's a death of a relationship. You feel you have failed yourself, you feel you've failed your partner, your children, society. So there's a tremendous amount of grief involved.
Now, South Asians, let's talk on divorce. South Asians now are starting to catch up to the statistic that exists for Western 50%. I would say that in a room of South Asians, you can go around the room and almost half of them are divorced or will be divorced. That's a fact. What is that, how is that tying in now to people you're seeing? Are you seeing that now? Are they coming to you after they're divorced, or what's happening? I want to know about that.
I'll be very honest. We're still not there yet. There's a very limited population that will be open to the idea of counseling, especially for marriage counseling. That in itself is very, very complicated. Even for depression, you'll feel that you'll get advice from people, you'll get the whole that this is all American psychobabble, you don't need to come in for therapy. But what a lot of people don't realize is the great emotional support that a therapeutic alliance between yourself and the client will have. And it's just a place for you to discover yourself. And it doesn't mean that if you're coming to me, you're not going to get a divorce, or if you're coming to me that you will get a divorce. That is ultimately your choice. But it's a choice that you will help to make for yourself without somebody's opinion enforced on you. You go ask one of your Indian friends or Pakistani friends and they'll give you the very stereotypical response. You go to a therapist that's American, they will give you the very westernized image of marriage and everything. My hope is that with more of us in our ethnicity getting into this field, that we should be able to merge the two, that we understand the pressures of the American society, and also take into consideration our culture.
Well, I mean, you mentioned a very important thing, children. I mean, we are also growing successful kids in our families. Going through a divorce, a separation, and raising your kids at the same time is tremendously, hard. It's really, really hard. Now, what do you tell to those parents who are going through this situation and they're finding it very hard to cope?
Regardless, parenting is tough, right?
Yes.
I've got kids,
you've
got kids. It's just tough regardless. And if you throw into the equation something like this, the kids don't get it. They don't understand. They're most of the times they're too young to understand the abstract concept of relationship not working out.
Sumrah, thank you so much for joining us
pleasure.
today.
Thank you for having me.
We learned a little thing here and there. And viewers, if you heard Sumrah, please don't wait till it really gets bad, because if it's really bad, the recourse is even harder. So if you see a little problem in your relationship, go to a therapist, find a solution, and talk to him or her just like a friend.
Like a professional.
Yes.
Yes, it's a good idea. Earlier today, we talked about love beckons, right?
Yes.
And then we moved from love beckons over to when maybe love isn't beckoning, to meet our therapist.
Yeah.
And she talked about relationships and all this stuff,
because
right?
love always doesn't mean happily ever after, I guess.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, there's nothing wrong, but it doesn't always end up being together forever, right?
Yes.
And you know what's the most stressful thing or the most difficult thing in a breakup or a divorce or a separation? Money. Money is security. Money means everything to a woman or a man, and that's the most difficult thing to handle. I would say next to kids. Kids also, but money also, I think, if you weigh. And that's why today we have Imran, who's a certified financial advisor, and so glad to have you on the studio here today and talk about what you think is the right approach towards handling money in a case of a separation.
First of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. See, divorce is an emotional thing. In a short term, there is no winners in divorce. In the long run, of course, you go your ways. But physically, it's emotionally very challenging for both the parties. In the hand of the couples, to make it ugly or to make it sweet. Most of the time, what happens, both of them want out, but they don't know how to get out. And this uncertainty creates like a rift among them. So the first thing is they need to be educated on what process or what steps they need to be taking.
Right. I mean, what is the right approach, you tell
Well,
me?
the thing is, they need to keep the emotions on the side, and they need to work towards a healthy approach. First of all, they need to work on a budget, that what's going to be happening. I know this is the last thing on the mind, the finances last thing on the mind.
Right.
But the first thing they should be like, while they're going through this process of divorce, what was the budget going to be? Who's going to be paying what? What's going to be happening? So if they lay out these certain things, they'll be perfect. First, they'll need to find an experienced divorce lawyer and a certified or a financial planner who is very good in divorce cases. The reason being, because sometimes people say, oh, it's expensive, I can look up online and do all these things, but these people pay off in time, because then they have everything in lined up for them. Pension accounts, retirement accounts, houses, how they need to be divided. Keeping that in mind, also what happens is, like, let's say taxations. And the last year of the marriage, who's going to file what taxes? So all these things, what property is going to be sold and what property is going to be kept. So these are things that, who owns how much money.
But as much as we don't want to talk about this subject, because we don't want to see relationships breaking up, but the learning is important, and knowing that what mistakes do you see in your practice commonly couples make while they're going through this divorce process, and then 5 years later they're like, oh, I shouldn't have done it at that time.
Right, as I said, laying out everything in open communication, laying out all the assets and working with professionals, because that is a huge impact that our people, mostly community, they do not want to work professional. They say, oh, I can look up on internet and do it. I think that's the mistake where they're making. They should not be doing that.
I think typically, though, isn't there a lot of animosity at this time in many cases where the breakups are not mutual? And so during that animosity, they're out to get each other. And she says, I'm going to get him, and I'm going to take him for everything. And he says, well, I'm not going to let her get me, and I'm not going to let her get anything. So how does that sort of fit in when you see this in your practice? Does that happen? I mean, do you see people just trying to get at each other, and you're kind of in the middle saying, whoa, 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 take it easy, guys. They're throwing punches at each other.
That's an excellent point. I see that all the time. See, what happens is, we need to keep our emotions on the side. I know this is a tough thing to do. It's easy said to be done. But the thing is, if you want a healthy divorce, if 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, do you don't want to regret what has happened? So this is the way to do it. We are all adults here. Need to calm down, keep our emotions on the side, put all the finances on the table, work with the professional again, as I said, and create a healthy path. You have kids also. If you have kids, then it makes it even more complicated.
Right.
Because then the kids.
How do you do the kids separation when it comes to finances?
Well, you have to first get on the right track, that how many kids, what ages they are in, how much they will be needing to spend, like if there's alimony going to become, who's going to be coming from. So these
after sorting these all things about who's going to take care of what, I mean, do you suggest or would you advise that someone comes to a third party who maybe both of them don't know at all, to decide
like a mediator?
Like a mediator. Right, exactly. That's what the lawyer on both sides, they work on that things. The financial planners, they work on the side. So this is their team. Basically, their team is created. It's just like a process. So if you have a healthy team, if you have an educated team, that will make this all thing easier.
But typically, you see that each person has their own representation,
yes.
Right? So how does that then work? Because if you have your own attorneys and they're all sort of working for their clients, is that similar with the financial planners as well? Are there two sets of planners then? I mean, are you interfacing with the planner on the other side sometimes?
What happens is, typically there's one financial planner, but lawyers are typically two. Okay. So what happens, because they've been working with the family for a long time, so they know the finances, and by profession, by legal, we have to disclose everything what's there. So it is always recommended to go to the financial advisor which you are working with. So that's how we come in the picture there, and that's how we kind of lay everything out on the table and decide from there.
Tell me the top 3 things that one should keep an eye on.
One is, of course, the finances, that where all the money is, where all the assets are. It should be out in the table. The second thing is, they should be aware of the debts, who owes what, and what happens in case of a divorce, where's things going to go. The third thing is, if they have the kids, it's very important that who gets what, and because it's not something that after it's done, you're going to regret it, as you said, 5 years down the road, I should have done this, I should have done this. So if you have kids, you need to be taking care of the kids too in the beginning part here, right. Laying out a plan. Fourth is also staying on the, if you don't have the kids, taxation, because taxation, people typically, and females are emotionally very attached to homes. So if they have a home together, she wants that, right? So she needs to make a choice that, okay, is it an educated choice? These days, most of the houses are down the hill. Or should she be getting that house or not? Or will she be able to, or he will be able to afford that house or not? So is it better to take it into the divorce court and just separate it right there, or keep it? So all those things is individually based, but the thing needs to be out there.
Wonderful show today. Would you agree, ladies?
Loved it, loved it. Love Beckons was
Yes.
amazing.
And I learned a lot from the counselor. I really did. I thought it was awesome. And then
Yeah,
what
even
about-
if you don't need counseling, I'm going to go and see her. She's just so nice. And it's already time to wrap our show. See you next week. But till then, remember to look ahead. That is where the future lies. Nobody gets to live life backwards, as Abraham Lincoln aptly quotes. And in the end, it's not the years in your life that count. It's the life in your years. Always remember that. Have a great day and a great weekend ahead. We'll see you next time. Same place, same time.
See you then.